Hello! Welcome back, people of the internet and world. Thank you so much for tuning in for another video by meganambie. So I got recommended this video idea by a lovely viewer, and I thought it was such a great video idea because there are a lot of fun, enjoyable, and funny stories behind each of these textbooks/books that I did not read during my time in college. And I just want to say, if you are in college, please, if you can, try to avoid buying the textbook. It is such a waste of money. You need to save the money for something that really matters. Like, for example, those Lululemon leggings that you desperately need. You can't show up to yoga class in leggings from Target. No, those are for peasants. That won't do. You need the hipster leggings from Lululemon. Try to find some sort of free PDF version online, torrent it. If you're lucky enough to have some friends, maybe ask them if they have a PDF of the book or if they have an older edition of the book that they can hand down to you. I didn't have very many friends in college, and hence the huge stack of books that I purchased. So these were the only physical textbooks that I could find, and they're mostly from freshman or sophomore year. If I did have physical textbooks from junior or senior year, it was most likely because either I really wanted the book myself or the professor basically gave me a death threat if I didn't actually buy the book. But I would say a vast majority of them, probably 75% of them, are PDFs. And I probably won't talk about it in this video. I'll mostly go over these lovely physical textbooks here. All right, before we get started though, we need to make a deal right now. And that's, you are not allowed to roast me if some of these textbooks look like they've never been opened before. I know what the comment section is used for, but finally, these textbooks can be used for something. Let's get started. All right, so the first textbook that we're gonna start out with is Math 53, otherwise known as Multivariable Calculus at UC Berkeley. I took Math 53 in my very first semester. So obviously, as a freshman, you're naive, you have no idea what's going on. If the professor tells you you need the textbook, you're gonna buy the textbook. But I do remember that I had the PDF version of this textbook. So I remember showing up for my very first multivariable calculus lecture to Winnell 155. And there were a lot of people there, right? Because it was the very first lecture. Everyone shows up to that one. And the professor was standing at the front of the class in front of the chalkboard, and on the board it said Math 53. I don't think I had any friends in that class. So I sat down next to some random people. Like, I sat down next to, I think, a girl and a guy and another guy. I had no idea who they were, but I just sat down next to them and I overheard their conversation because, I'm a little eavesdropper. No, they were actually talking super loudly. They were flexing about how they had the free PDF version of the textbook. And so I remember overhearing that, and I was like, oh my God, I need to get in on that, like, pass me the goods. So I turned to this girl to the left of me and I asked her, hey, do you mind sending me the PDF version of the textbook that you just sent to your friend? She's like, I got you, give me your email. So then I gave her my email and then she emailed it to me. And then I never talked to her again. So the takeaway from that story is that if you are ever starting college and you're worried that you won't have any friends, well, just ask someone for a free PDF version of the textbook. And that may be the start of a beautiful friendship. So I thought it was really clever and savvy, right? Because I was able to land the free PDF version of the textbook and I wouldn't need to buy the actual physical copy of the textbook. I saved myself $75. I can use that money to buy probably the left leg of a Lululemon legging. But then the professor was like, oh no, you need to buy the physical copy of the textbook because you can't do your homework without it. The only difference between the PDF version and the physical copy was the order of the problems. So for example, in the homework, he would say, do all the odd problems in the textbook. But then in the PDF version, all of the odd problems were swapped with the even problems in the physical copy. And so that's the reason why it says Math 53 at UC Berkeley. So as you can see, this one is pretty used, right? Because I had to actually go in and do the homework. The last thing I want to say about this class before we move on was that the professor would always start a proof to a theorem, but then he would never finish it. All right, moving on. So next up, we got this bad boy. Can't even carry it, it's so heavy. Okay, so this textbook is the very first organic chemistry class that I took at Berkeley. And as you can see, I actually bought the textbook. And as you can see, it is by Peter Volhart. Coincidentally, the professor of the class that I was taking it with at the time was Peter Volhart. Every single one of his lectures felt like a sponsored YouTube video. So if you guys are looking to get an A on your next organic chemistry exam, looks like a great idea would be to buy the textbook that I happen to write. Imagine if there was a comment section for every lecture. Wait, that's just the Zoom chat box nowadays, right? And so I took organic chemistry freshman year, right? Before I had any shred of wisdom or knowledge. So I bought the textbook because I figured, well, you know, if the professor of the class that I'm taking it with is recommending the textbook that he wrote, then maybe I should buy the textbook. You know, you buy the textbook out of guilt and fear. Yeah, well, this ended up becoming my laptop stand for the entire semester. You could plop your laptop right on top of it. Look, it's thick. It prevents the heat of your laptop ever reaching your desk flat. So, you know, your laptop doesn't slide off. Wow, there's cool stuff in here. Maybe I'll read you a little bit of it. Chapter 13, lucky number. Alkynes, the carbon-carbon triple bond. Alkynes are hydrocarbons that contain carbon-carbon triple bonds. It should not come as a surprise that their characteristics resemble the properties and behaviors of alkenes. They're double-bonded cousins. My next books are also from freshman year, and as you can see, I have 2 copies of Crime and Punishment. So with my major, along with other engineering majors, they made it a degree requirement that you have to take at least 2 English classes in order to graduate. Because I guess engineers need to know how to read and write. And so every semester when my friends and I were looking for classes, we would shop around for what was the best English class to take. Funny enough, the class that I decided to take to satisfy my English requirement was this class called Slavic R5A, and this was a class that was entirely based on Russian literature. So all of the books that we read in this class were books written by Russian authors or took place in Russia. And you're probably wondering like, oh Megan, well you picked that class, right? Because you must have some sort of tie to Russian literature. And no, I do not. When I signed up for the class, I just thought it was really cool. So one of the novels that we had to read in this class was Crime and Punishment. And so you may also be wondering why I have 2 copies of Crime and Punishment. And well, I'm here to answer that question for you. I had this one since I was little, and I read this book when I was in like middle school or something, when I was really young. So when I heard that we were reading Crime and Punishment, I was really excited because I actually really liked this book and I knew that I had read it in the past. So I was like, wow, you know, I'm totally ready for this class. I'm gonna nail it. Every time we had lecture for this class, we would all bring our Crime and Punishment novels to class. And we had around 10 minutes in each class period dedicated to just going around and reading this textbook in class. Because I don't know, I guess we're not capable of reading this on our own. And so I would come in every day with this version, right? Because this was the version that I had since I was little and I read this one. But my professor mandated that we all buy this version, which is essentially the same book, it's just a different edition. And so the reason why she wanted us all to have the same edition was because when we were reading the book out loud in class, we could all flip to the same page and we would all literally be on the same page. Whereas if I came in with this one, page 77 is going to be different than the words on page 77 here, right? I just completely refused to buy the other edition because I was like, why am I wasting money on the exact same book? I don't want to do that. I want to save my money for a Phil's coffee. And so one day the professor noticed, right, that I came in with a different book. And she's like, hey Megan, do you mind buying this one? And so fast forward to like week 10 now, right? And I still do not have this edition of Crime and Punishment. I still have this one. And I like haven't read the book at all, right? Because, well, you know, I read it when I was in middle school. So why do I need to read it again? I already know everything that happened in Crime and Punishment. There was crime and there was punishment. I guess we're not capable of reading this on our own. Finals week was coming around. I was like, oh, I think I need to not only buy this book, but I need to read it. I finally gave in and I bought this edition. The week before finals week rolls around and we all have to write our 15-page report, right, on this novel. And the thing is that I'm relying now on my memory of what happened in Crime and Punishment from when I read it in middle school. And I don't know about you, but my understanding of things changed from who I am am today versus when I was in middle school. And I wrote a 15-page paper on the theme of religion within crime and punishment. And I did just fine. All right, so the next textbooks we're gonna go over are going to be the physics textbooks that I took for my general physics education requirement. So I have volume 1 and volume 2 of physics for scientists and engineers. You know, I just noticed from my like 2 to 4 years of having this textbook, this is my first time realizing I said here, custom edition for University of California, Berkeley. There's even a note here on the back of the textbook that I have never read until now. Dear student, you don't have to struggle that hard to learn physics if you will take the time to read this book and go to class. There is really nothing memorable or funny about this class. The only thing I remember about this class was that all of our homework assignments were problems that were off this online platform called Mastering Physics, where we did not become masters of physics. All right, next textbook, Campbell Biology. So this is a textbook that I used when I took general biology in my sophomore year with Professor Jennifer Doudna. Basically, UC Berkeley's new mascot. Move over, Oski. I gotta be honest with you, I don't think I ever opened this textbook once. I realized very quickly that purchasing this textbook was a big mistake. Good thing I only spent like 20 bucks or something on it because I bought it off of a friend who is now no longer a friend to me because she took this class and did not tell me when selling this textbook that she did not use the textbook at all the entire semester. In addition to the organic chemistry textbook, this is also a great laptop stand. Like, look at Concept 32.1. Animals are multicellular, heterotrophic eukaryotes with tissues that develop from embryonic layers. Tell me more. Okay, so this one is Quantum Mechanics by Branson and Kane. What do the makeup influencers do? So this one I actually bought, and this is from the upper division physics class that I took in my junior year, I believe. So that means that I actually wanted to buy this textbook, right? Because at this point, I knew that buying textbooks is a waste of money. I mean, no, it's not. It enhances your knowledge greatly and helps you study well and learn a lot of material from the class. But I bought this textbook because I wanted to understand quantum mechanics well. I will say, maybe the people who are experts in quantum mechanics can comment down below or disagree with me. But I think if you're learning quantum mechanics for the first time, I wouldn't start out with the Branson and Kane textbook. I would start out with the Griffith's Introduction to Quantum Mechanics textbook, which I will now show here. And I believe there's a free PDF of the Griffith's textbook online, which is really cool if you want to get started on your QM journey. So I remember in my junior year, I would come home, and if I had time at the end of the day, I would sit down in the living room on this old-fashioned looking couch. So it was like one of those single chairs that had that old granny-like flower pattern on the chair. Brew myself a cup of tea, crack open Quantum Mechanics, Branson, Kane. And I would just sit there and just read this while sipping on my tea on a casual Friday night. Hopefully it wasn't a Friday night. Hopefully it was more of like a Monday night, because that makes sipping tea while reading quantum mechanics so much more respectable. 7th edition electric circuits textbook that I took a medical devices class in my junior year, and I really liked that class actually. When I had a problem set for this class, I would go over to the Phil's on Shattuck, which is unfortunately now closed, and order myself probably an iced ecstatic, you know, because when we're studying, we're serious. After ordering my coffee, I would head to the back of the Phil's, where I would sit at one of those high tables and sit on one of those high chairs, and I would just bust out this book and get to work on the problem set. And then at the end of the day, I would head over across the street to this little French restaurant called Gregoire's, who has the best potato puffs in the Bay. I highly recommend. All right, so for the last textbook we got here is potentially my favorite textbook in this entire textbook haul. So it is called Molecular Driving Forces, Statistical Thermodynamics in Biology, Chemistry, Physics, and Nanoscience. So I bought this textbook when I was taking Stat Mech in my junior year. And the time that I was taking this class, I took it with Professor Terry Johnson, who is one of my favorite Berkeley bioengineering professors. And as you can see from the stamp here, it says that it's $100, but I really cannot imagine myself spending $100 on a textbook. I'm pretty sure I bought this off Amazon for less than that. And I thought this book offered a really cool and unique perspective on how to incorporate math into explaining these basic science concepts. And I think one of the coolest concepts in here that I really liked was proving the ideal gas law, PERVNERT, otherwise known as PV equals nRT, with statistical thermodynamics and probability. Yeah, I really like this textbook, and if you are into this stuff or you want some light reading to enjoy on the side while you sip on some tea at night, I highly encourage you pick one of these up yourself. Christmas is coming up. I'm sure these will make great stocking stuffers. Alright guys, that's all I got for this video. If you enjoyed this video, tell me all about it. If you did not enjoy this video, then keep that to yourself. I will see you in the next one.